Hey everybody, Mark Schultz here. We're live with episode 4 of the Digital Aircraft Secrets podcast. I'm really excited about bringing you discussions of recovery in the airline industry. It's leaders like us, like me, like you, and others in the industry that are going to make a difference on how quickly the airline industry recovers. And you might say, well, how can that be? How can we affect the factors of the industry? Look, we all bring our enthusiasm and our ideas to the industry. And it's no different than the stock market. When people support a particular stock or a particular business, it goes up. The value goes up. It's in high demand. And it's our responsibility as leaders to bring enthusiasm to the industry, assess the situation, to be able to understand what the right actions are, and to take action in the industry. We're here to be able to create confidence in the flying public so that people will feel comfortable flying again in this post-economic challenge that we've had surrounding the coronavirus. And it's leaders that are going to lead the charge, and we're going to be able to create recovery in the industry. And so I've specifically created this podcast and other social media broadcasts that we've been doing in order to be able to bring to you ideas and thoughts and vision, and bring interviews with different leaders within the industry so that we can work together to be able to bring together the teams of knowledge that can help us to recover in the industry faster. I've seen so many very interesting things in the last few days about leaders which are bringing forward great ideas and are beginning to think about how can we recover within the industry. But the sad thing is that most of what we see is reporting of downed airplanes and losses, potential losses of jobs, and recoveries that are 12, 18 months long. Transportation and commerce is critical to a successful society. As people, we need connection with other people. We want to travel. People have longed to travel for many years. And so the demand for travel has not gone away. Just the factors and circumstances around us and the economics surrounding us have caused it to contract. And it's our responsibility as leaders to reevaluate that and determine how can we recreate an environment that can satisfy the demand of the traveling public and the demand of commerce. Listen, commerce has been a critical and important part of society ever since the very beginning. And it still is, and it still will be. And those modes of transportation, whether it be land or sea or whether it be air, are necessary for the success of commerce. And so we know the demand is there, and it's our responsibility to reassess the situation, make plans, and take action. And so one of the things I wanted to focus on today is tomorrow I'm going to be having an interview with a former employee of the airline Flybe, which saw its demise in March of this year, in March of 2020. But we're going to have some discussions about his perspective on why the airline ended up where it was and what resulted in the collapse. But we're also going to talk about the good things that they were doing, the positive things, and how those things we can learn from those things and take those things forward into creating additional success as we go forward. Now, unfortunately, there's been quite a number of airlines over the years that have met their demise. And all I can tell you is over and over and over again, the business models, continue to be challenged. Either their routes are challenged, or their pricing structures are challenged, or their administrative overheads are challenged, or the company's got to be too big administratively for their ability to be able to operate for the demand on the routes. And so it's extremely critical that the airlines continue to evaluate their models, their business models, to be able to evaluate their route structures, their cost and price structures, and to be able to have cost infrastructures which can support the revenues which they can achieve on those routes they're on. And so I wanted to take a minute and focus on the airline that he left from, which was Flybe. And tomorrow we're going to have an interesting insight from him, being an employee who unfortunately ended up jobless after that situation. I met him about 6 years ago, I think, when I was doing some work, when I was actually working for Boeing at the time. And I was doing work, quite a bit of work in the Middle East, and I met him when he was working at Etihad. And so we had about 4 years where we actually worked together, and I saw a lot of good things that were happening at that time. And we're going to talk about what he was doing at Etihad and what was creating success, and what he was doing at Flybe and what was creating success. But we also want to, use this opportunity to talk to an employee who was very engaged internally, within the airline, and have a bit of a discussion about, the things that were successful and the things that were challenged. And we need to learn from history, and we need to make changes and adjust and take action to be able to create this recovery really that we're really talking about. And Flybe, interesting thing about Flybe is they have a long history. I mean, I don't know exactly how many years they've been around, but I think it's been about 40 years or something like that. And they had a very large percentage of traffic in the UK, flying into Ireland and flying around to different connecting places within Europe and within the EU. And they had a very significant amount of traffic. And one of the challenges that they found themselves with is that they got to a place where they were doing fair competition and trying to compete with surface transportation. They were trying to compete with rail and some of the other modes of transportation, and they found themselves really cutting their prices down to the place where it wasn't really sustainable. And if we look at their financials, after 2008, believe it or not, they actually were doing okay in 2008. And I think it was, let me take a look at it here, is that I think they were actually doing okay into 2008, 9, 10, 11, and 12, if I remember correctly. I guess I better take a look in order to actually make sure. In the time frame of yeah, that's right. So in 2008, they had a good profit, but we had an economic crash in the later part of 2008. They still were running positive in 2009, 2010, 2011, and then in 2012 through now, basically they had pretty much been losing money. There was a couple of years where they weren't, and so the business model was really challenged. So even though they had a lot of traffic, their load factors, it looks like, were running and sometimes in the 80-90%, but then they dropped down into 75, 80%, and so their load factors were starting to be challenged. But the whole combination of their route structures and their load factors and their pricing and the aircraft that they were operating, their administrative overhead, all those things represented challenges which caused them really to struggle and continue to really not be able to make money. It was really a great airline, and a lot of people were really happy with that airline. They were flying the Q400s and the Embraer 175s, and it was a great operation, and a lot of people really enjoyed flying with Flybe. But their business model just didn't work, and they just continued to lose money until the place where they just couldn't do it anymore. And then over the course of last year, there was and they put it up for sale in late 2018 and into 2019. And in 2019, they were bought by a group, and that group basically it was a Stobart group, and Stobart Air was actually operating at that time. And they own the airport. They own one of the airports there on the South End Airport. And so basically, they tried to put together a new consortium to be able to keep this thing operating. And one of the elements of that consortium was Virgin. And toward the end of 2019, they had actually made a decision to be able to operate the Flybe aircraft under the Virgin Atlantic name. And so they thought that with the power behind Virgin Atlantic that they could basically resurrect this. But they have been running with such slim margins for so long that that's really the death of any business. All right, I actually was in a business in 2008, 2005 through 2008. And unfortunately, we were running some pretty slim margins, and we were fairly laden with debt. And when the economic crash came in the housing market, it made it very difficult for us to continue to operate because we had such high debt loads and such slim margins. And on Friday, we're actually going to talk to a company who's maintained a very positive position, a positive cash position, and they've weathered, I think, 4 or 5 of the economic downturns of the airline. And so the big difference between those two businesses is one had a strong cash position, continued to manage expenses, and had a business model which allowed them to be able to be operating with a positive, cash position year after year after year. And Flybe continued to operate in a position where they had losses for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of the last 8 years at this point in time. And so what happened then is that when the coronavirus came around in the January timeframe, they couldn't make it. The load factors started to drop already at that point even further, and the cash started to drop down, and there was just no way they could continue to operate. They basically ceased operations in March, early March. I think it was March 5th, somewhere around there. And they discontinued operations. And the bad news is it happened overnight. And the employees, the pilots and the employees and the crew and everybody involved, found themselves without work immediately. There was almost 3,000 employees that were involved in that. And tomorrow I'm going to have one of those employees on the interview here with me. We're going to do a live broadcast on LinkedIn, on social media. It'll be broadcast on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And I want to invite you to join that because we're going to get some additional insight from the inside. So we're going to talk to him a little bit about what he sees as the market that's going on in Europe at this point in time, and really what it's going to take, what are the key factors for success, and what are some of the things that affected him during the demise of Flybe at the time. And really, what are the key factors for success? What can we learn from that, and how can we move forward? But the whole point of this podcast, the Digital Aircraft Secrets podcast, is that we want to focus on discussions around recovery within the aviation industry. We don't want to focus on the demise of things. We're just going to learn from that. We want to learn from that, and we want to say, okay, what's next? Because in order for the airline industry to really recover, there's going to have to be an injection of enthusiasm and energy and good ideas, and we're going to have to create a safe and efficient operation for people to be able to come back and to fly in the airplanes again. They're going to have to feel like the airplanes are clean, and they're going to have to be able to be fares that are supported on the routes that they're in. So it's going to be extremely important, that we understand the situation, that we make a plan, and that we take action. And so we want to learn from this. All right. So we want to take a look at different situations, talk to different experts in the industry, continue to share information amongst ourselves. All right. Many, many years ago, a friend of mine and I, we sat around a table and we were going to start a business. And, he put on the table, he said, business is started by really smart guys, all right, by really smart people, all right? And, if really smart people put their heads together and can take an idea and figure out how to move it forward, that's how things happen. As teams, we can aggregate knowledge, and we have better understandings of situations, and we can better understand plans to move forward. And together as teams, we can create better success. And so I challenge you out there in the industry that as a leader to be able to share your knowledge and share your information, and let's work together as leaders in the industry, as CEOs and presidents and managers and leaders and just enthusiastic coworkers to be able to bring this industry back to what it is. For those of us that are involved in the industry, this isn't just a passion, all right? This is an obsession. If we're involved in aviation, it's like we're drawn to aviation like a moth to the light, okay? Is that we just can't get away from it. And so being a part of aviation is a crucial, component. It's been a crucial component of my life, ever since I was young, ever since I was 2 or 3 years old. And I've been involved in aviation ever since. And it's just been a core part of my life. And it's an obsession. It's something I just want, and I want to be part of. Now, and if people are connected, through society by meeting with people and traveling and seeing the way other people live, and our lives are so enriching by that. And all I can just say is that over the years I've had so many experiences from all over the world, and I've met so many people, and my life has been so enriched from that. And I just want to be able to share this with other people, and I want other people and generations to come to be able to have that same experience. And so, like I said at the beginning of this broadcast, is that commerce depends on air transport. It depends on transport, sea, land, and air. They're all critical components of the success of a nation. For a nation to be successful, we have to have successful, trade to occur. And air transport is such an essential piece of it. So the demand is there, and we have to figure out how to create safe and efficient transport in order for that commerce to be successful. And in addition to that, people are drawn to meet other people and to travel and to see other places and have enriched lives and experiences. And so the demand is there for travel. We as leaders just have to assess the situation. We have to see what's going on. We have to make plans, and we have to take action to be able to bring this recovery back. And so I challenge you as leaders to do that, is to be enthusiastic and to be part of the recovery, all right? Be part of recovery in aviation. Hey, stay tuned daily on this podcast as we walk through this recovery in aviation, and you're going to get enthusiasm and encouragement and great ideas, because we're going to continue to bring people on this show that can give us great ideas and understanding so that we can make good decisions. Okay, so tomorrow I'm going to be doing an interview with a gentleman from Flybe, who left Flybe 1 month ago at their collapse. And then on Friday, I have the CEO of a Canadian company who does software in the industry. And we're going to continue to accelerate the interviews that we have. I have a whole schedule of interviews lined up. And together, we're going to leverage that knowledge to be able to create recovery in the industry. Hey, be here Fridays at 9 o'clock Pacific time. And you'll be able to hear these live interviews on social media, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube, and on Facebook. All right. Hey, fair winds and following seas to you. Have a great day. Bye.